I'm Commander Sinclair. Welcome to Babylon 5.
If someone doesn't begin making sense here, I'm going to become most annoyed.
Why do you ask me questions when you already know the answers?
And after a while, that really starts to annoy me.
This is definitely the place for one hell of a party.
Gold channel opened.
Greetings and welcome to your last Best Hope for Conversation, a B5 podcast. I am Jesse Jackson. I'm directing traffic in the CNC. Joining me today is my longtime podcast brother, Lou. Lou, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's great to be back with the gang.
Yeah. My new friend, Jason, a.k.a. The Big Geek. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for inviting me on the show.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. And, of course, the podcast mom, Karen.
Hello, everybody.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've talked about a little bit of this in our intro, but Karen, Lou, and I have been looking for an excuse to get together and podcast. And gosh, a couple of years ago, Lou mentioned, I got the Babylon 5, series set as a gift, and I haven't broke it out yet. And since I've never seen it, would we want a podcast? And we all said, yeah, that'd be a good idea, and just other things kind of work through. So this seemed like 2022. The last best hope for maybe some sanity with everything going on. So we decided to do a Babylon 5 podcast. We'll set up the rules very quickly. Jason has seen the show in its entirety. So have I. Karen and Lou have maybe seen episodes here and there, but they have no true context of the show. So this will be a spoiler-free discussion. If you have never watched Babylon 5, you can listen to this podcast, and we will only be discussing things up into the current episode we're discussing. We certainly are going to have our rookies forecast and give thoughts, and Jason and I will try to bite our tongue if they're way off or way correct, but it should be a lot of fun. So I'm going to start with you, Lou. Tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, well, if by any chance you've heard our previous podcast, we did a Fringe and Farscape, and way back when we did a Chuck podcast as well. So we're going way back. I also do a regular Stephen King podcast, and that's currently in the process of transitioning from an audio site to, I'm going to migrate over to YouTube, but that means I have to transition all my old shows over to that format. So that's going to be fun. In terms of Farscape, I'm going to be making that mistake quite a few times. Old habits die hard. Babylon 5. I caught an episode here and there, but I don't know. I just wasn't in the mood at the time. I have to admit, I have a thing against space station based science fiction shows, because for me, obviously the original Star Trek, the spaceship traveling around, that was my bread and butter type of science fiction show. I was not much for space stations. Those were the people who go that aren't qualified to do starship travel. So that's kind of my mindset of that. But so I tried to get into the show, and there was one character, I think a Centurion, and they have like a Three Stooges haircut, and that just really, that really threw me for a loop. And so I just never really, I just fell out of it. And then, as things pile up, it was 3 or 4 seasons in, and I thought, I was hearing good things, but I thought, I don't really feel like sitting down and catching up. But fortunately, with the internet and all this podcasting and everything, it makes doing this kind of exercise a lot fun when it's a communal exercise. So hopefully not just between us, but our listeners will also enjoy the journey as well. Rookies and veterans alike. I mean, we had a blast doing Farscape and Fringe. And it's most fortuitous because I just finished watching The Expanse, which is probably, like this series is probably like the grandfather, along with Deep Space Nine. And so, you can see the progression of the quality of science fiction shows. And what really kind of sparked us off too was the announcement that I believe the CW is going to do a reboot of Babylon 5 as well, which is kind of up in the air. I understand I think the pilot still has to be approved and before filming starts. So
JMS just recently tweeted that he got the green light, that the CW execs are excited about what he's done. And so, yeah, that's pretty good. And all I'm going to say is about, your Three Stooges haircut is Rigel. Just throw Rigel in the back of your, and then you go, oh, okay. Well, Lou, it is great to have you here. Jason, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, my name's Jason, and since this is an audio podcast, nobody can see my Centauri do, but I do have one. It looks really nice. But I'm a lover of podcasts. I've been podcasting with two of my really good friends for about 5 years now. We did 4 years at Digital Soup. We're currently doing the Listwise podcast, where we just pick a topic, and it's all about like the top 5 musical frontman, whatever. We come with 5 choices each. And then we hash it out, we debate, we battle it down to a show's 5, and it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of great fun, a lot of great interaction. But Babylon 5, I mean, I love this show. And I actually didn't see the first run. I saw it in reruns on TNT, and I was mad that I didn't see it when it first aired. But I love the show. I mean, like Lou said, my favorite space stuff is the adventure stuff. Like, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I've never watched Deep Space Nine, just because it's stationary. I think I did hear that they do venture out, different things, especially in later seasons, but it didn't interest me. So I never watched it. But yeah, pure space adventure. I love it. So that's my forte there. And I've, like I told you guys pre-show, that I've seen this series through twice. But the last time was about a decade ago. So a lot of this is from memory, but I did recently watch The Gathering again, just to refresh myself prior to this. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because, well, I like to talk.
Well, Jason, that is always a good thing. And Karen, it is so good to see you, my friend. This is new for us, because a lot of times we did Skype where we just heard voices. We didn't get to see each other's face. So Karen, for those of you who may not know your legendary status as the podcast mom.
That's silly. That's just silly.
But true.
Yeah, I've done like 100 podcasts. I mean, I honestly don't know how many I've done. I'm not going to list them down, but if you want to see and hear any of them, you can go to alliestuff.com, which is my blog. And there's a lot of links on there. And okay, I review romance novels, so that's all the other stuff. But there is a page that's called Where You Can Find Me, and it has all my links and everything. I just recently did Next podcast last year on the show Next. But besides that, I haven't podcasted in a couple of years. As you can probably tell, I don't have a mic. Like, I took all that stuff down. So I apologize. I'll try and get that set back up. But
no, you sound good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I haven't done anything for a couple of years. Like I said, the last thing I did was Doctor Who podcast and the Fandom Zone, which were just amazing. I mean, you guys are amazing. Lou actually got me into podcasting. He is the first person that asked me to do anything, the Chuck podcast. So he's to blame for me. And then we're to blame for Jesse.
Yes. So Karen and I, after we were doing the Farscape podcast, she said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing a Castle podcast. Would you want to join me?" And I went, "Yeah, you know me. I love Nathan Fillion."
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And we Storming the Castle. And what a reason why that's important is every other time I'd been kind of the audience member, the newbie, kind of contributor. And all of a sudden, as we started doing this more and more, Karen was doing all the editing, all the posting, doing everything. So I started, do you want me to kind of host? Oh, that'd be great.
And I said, yes, please.
Yeah. And so I ended up, learning those skills of doing it. And it was interesting. I thought of you, Karen, because just a few weeks ago, I had ended up having like 6 people on my Springsteen podcast doing a year in review, and I was doing, I was Susan in CNC, controlling everything. Babylon 5 has a special place in my heart. In the middle, when it came on TNT, my company I was working with at the time was in the middle of transitioning from legacy systems to a SAP system, and nothing was going right. Nothing was going right. And, we went from I worked in the customer service center. We had a 4 or 5 minute average handle time, and we had went up to 15 or 20 minutes because the system was so clunky, and just the whole life was going to shit. And so I would go home and pull up on my VCR, the latest TNT, and would just lose myself for that hour in that world. And so and then when I ended up watching season 5, in real time as TNT put this out. So, and then I've gone back multiple times ever since then. Huge JMS fan. He has a new novel that came out last year. Together We Will Go, I think is the name of it. I'll have to look that up, but it's a great novel that the main theme is a group of people all going to commit suicide together. And you go, God, that sounds so depressing, but it wasn't. It was actually a very great book. And I just finished reading his writing book, and I am not a writer, but him breaking down how to do writing and everything is great. And I've loved everything he did, from Jericho to all the Marvel movies he wrote, his comics. So I'm excited.
Sense8.
Yeah, Sense8. On Netflix was just amazing. So here we go. We're going to start. So now that we've got our setting, we're going to start with the very beginning. This was The Gathering, was the Babylon 5 pilot. They had filmed that and then kind of took it around and got thoughts. So I'm going to start with you, Lou. Tell us what your thoughts were. And this is long. I had forgotten how this was not an hour plot. This was a made for TV movie pilot that could have, if it hadn't gone, it could have stand alone.
Yeah, this is kind of a relic from the olden days of TV when a lot of series would start with a 90-minute pilot. So it was interesting to go back to it. As with most pilots, it has clunky parts and parts that work well. And it just reminds me, like I'm just started watching Yellowstone, and that original movie pilot was like, yeah, we watched it because we'd heard so much about the series. I thought, yeah, this is okay. And then we get into the first episode and okay, now we see what the show is about. So I'm expecting that to happen with this series as well. But it's interesting because, Star Trek fans always have this issue, like with if you're as old as I am, if you grew up with the original series, and then you come along and then people that grew up with the next generation and that, and they say, oh, I can't watch that original series. It looks so fake and blah, blah, blah. And, but because it was part of my childhood, I just can't see that. I see it, but it doesn't bother me because I'm so used to it. But so you come into this show and man, does it ever feel 80s? From production values, especially the civilian clothes and their hair, the blow dry hair stuff. I'm almost expecting like an AHA video, like Take On Me to start playing somewhere, like it's just, that's a little bit jarring, but you kind of get used to it. The CGI in the spaceships was a mixed bag for me, but I didn't mind it generally because I just like the designs of the ships overall. They're all different looking. And it's an interesting concept. There's a lot of breadcrumbs, I think, in this episode. I might be wrong, but especially like, they said, well, Babylon 5, first the name Babylon, which, it's always makes me think of the Tower of Babel, but it's not quite what this is about, I think. But the name is the Gate of the Gods is what the city translates from the Greek. Um,
Well, Leo, I'm going to step in for a bit. I think that's actually because the Tower of Babel, right, was the myth, or the Bible talks about that because they were trying to build this. That's when God gave everyone different languages so they could talk. So I think that a meeting point, I think that definitely could be where they were going through with the name of it.
Right. So in a show like this, because it's stationary, like Deep Space Nine had this issue, and I think Expanse to a lesser degree because they jumped around locations, but certain locations became very familiar, like the Sirius station or Medina station. Here you've got Babylon 5, which interestingly is the 5th iteration of this space station. The first 3 were destroyed. The 4th has gone missing, which to me is a big breadcrumb of something like, how can a space station go missing and nobody knows what happened? Like, were there not, like in this episode, there's ships all over the place flying around and whatnot, so nobody saw what happened. Or maybe that'll be explained better. Some of the characters, I think my favorite right now is Garibaldi, because he seems the most grounded and human. The commanders, and that's the problem with the hero characters. They're always a little dry. His memory gap thing, another breadcrumb, I'm sure, is very interesting. Some of the alien races, I mentioned the Centurion 3 Stooges haircut, still doesn't really fly with me, but I'm sure I'll just learn to block it out after time. So, there's interesting. It's an interesting premise for sure. Like, so all these races seem to have been at war with one another at one time or another. And what exactly the purpose of this space station is to do beyond, I guess, sort of maybe keep the peace is still unclear to me. But so there's enough here. Trying to get over the datedness of certain things is always going to be an issue. I generally, some of the space station sets are pretty cool, like the central corridor where the gardens and that stuff looks really neat. Their command center is terrible. I don't know if it gets upgraded in the series. I hope it does, because it's pretty cheap looking. I mean, it's funny because, like I look at the original Star Trek sets, and because everybody was in uniform and that, you kind of go along with it. But the sets, to me, because I grew up with it, I still, they still work for me, even though, they're obviously very primitive. But these sets seem even more primitive than the original Enterprise set. So it's an interesting mix, and I'm intrigued and curious to see where it goes into the first episode.
Good. Karen?
Yeah, I echo a lot of Lou's things. Like he said, with genre shows, I am so used to, like, the first episode or season or whatever, you have to forgive a lot, because a lot of it is set up and a lot of it is kind of, getting into a groove, and sometimes they don't have the money that they have later on, so you're going to get some cheapness. So I tend to forgive a lot of that, and I have to say, it gave me horrible flashbacks to high school, because I graduated high school in the 80s, and I know this show is in the 90s, which really, I was shocked that, like, okay, so the empath comes on board and she's got like an 80s overcoat with the shoulder pads and and the hair. The hair was triggering for me, because I don't know if you guys know, you guys out there, I have super curly hair, so I could never do any of the trendy hairstyles or anything. So all the girls with the big hairstyles and stuff, so yeah, that was a little jarring for me. But I did think the special effects were pretty good for the 90s. You have to kind of put yourself in that mindset of, this was out in the 90s.
Yeah, to interrupt, Karen, right? The same issue, like when you're watching, and I know Lou is not a fan of Doctor Who, but when you're watching classic Who, you have to get past like the cheesy special effects and the super sets. You have to go,
but that's
like, okay,
even now.
Yeah, that's true. It could be, yes.
Yeah, and you have to remember also that this was a TNT show, It was not a major network like Star Trek was on CBS, and The Next Generation was made by Paramount.
Yeah.
So they had money, they had
And
resources.
and to correct, this was not even a TNT show. The first 3 or 4 seasons were all just a independent only. They
Right.
had no network at all. And then TNT picked up for the 5th season. And so, yeah, very, very limited budget.
Right. And so I, in doing my research, and I did know a bit about the series, even though I hadn't seen a
Yeah.
single episode. I mean, if you're into genre shows, you know stuff about every
Exactly.
show, whether you've seen it or not.
Yep.
So I knew that that was the bag I was gonna get with this. It was gonna be mixed for sure. And also, like Lou said, there, intriguing plot points, yes. And I can see where it's setting up for some
Mhm.
storylines. I thought, as well as being like a peacekeeping place, there was a lot of business references.
Yes.
They tend to do business there. So maybe also a trade port of some sort. I mean, I'm assuming
Yes.
that's the empath is there only for business.
Yes.
So, that it's not like Lieutenant Troy, who is there for alien races and the crew and all that. She is literally there to facilitate trade.
And I have to ask, why would anybody agree to that kind of a meeting?
Right?
That's such a disadvantage. That doesn't make
Well,
any sense. but-
I had the same note. Why would you not, like, you would have your own, psychic.
Right.
Why it would be like, okay, I have a computer and you have a abacus,
Right.
why would you not, I mean, it makes for a good point and for a plot
In
point.
the show, yeah.
But in real life, you would go, no, both businessmen would have their own, the same way you might have your own, note taker or something. So yeah,
Right.
that's interesting, Karen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I thought there was some weirdness. There was some really good stuff, which
Yeah.
I was happy about, to see that, I'm not wasting my time with it. I assumed I wasn't because of how you talked about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not going to get into detail because I'm sure we're going to do that in
Okay.
a few minutes. But
Yeah. Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I love the series. And of course, when you go back to something that you watched a long time ago, like there's some shows like, oh, I love The Greatest American Hero back when I was a kid. One of the greatest shows ever.
Yes.
Picked up the DVD set
Agreed.
really cheap. I couldn't get through a couple of episodes. It did
Mhm.
not hold
It's
up.
bad.
Yeah. I don't think this is bad, but yeah, you do start picking out a lot of different things. One of the big things is I know the person that did the music for this episode is not the one that did it for the series, but oh my gosh, this is horrible music. When I am listening to this with the guitars and the drums, I'm thinking Miami Vice, and I don't want
Mhm.
Miami Vice in space.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I really dislike that. And I don't know how in depth we're going to go in the show. I have a lot of points I want to talk about, but can I just throw something here at Karen real fast about a comment you just made about the interpreter, the
Empath.
empath.
Mhm.
Now, I believe that is a station empath. It's not specifically for that businessman. I think
Right.
the staging at the table was incorrect because they had her sitting right next to the one businessman, and the other businessman was like across the table, which would lead you to think that's his businessman. But I think she's supposed to be impartial to both parties.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that either. That's a great point, because I
Well-
got the feeling that she was there to be hired the same way that
Right.
you would what do you see on my oldness, where
Mediator.
a notary
Yeah.
Right.
that.
right.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I-
I'm assuming that the guy that she was sitting next to is the one that paid for her service. So she was working as his advocate. But I also do think she's supposed to be impartial.
Yeah.
So it
Could
kind
be.
of a
But it
Yeah.
didn't come across like that.
No,
Ooh,
it didn't.
not.
yeah.
And see, it wouldn't work though, because if she could just be hired by anyone, any of the businessmen, I mean, if they have both of their own empaths, the empaths could be lying. They could be just working for that person. So there is no truth. But if they are a 100% impartial, station owned, just to be there to make sure that everything's on the up and up, that would make more sense to me. Yes.
That's a good research point. I'm gonna try to look that up. Yeah.
You notice that she didn't do any help for the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's not that impartial. She, she's like, he's telling the truth, to the one guy, but she never gave any of that back.
Yeah.
To the guy on the other side of the table. So like I was saying, and you were saying, impartial, yes, because she's owned by the station or, works for the station. But, she knows where her bread is buttered. She's getting paid by the one guy. So she's going to talk to that guy.
I did find it interesting, and you had to forgive, but the very clunky dialogue of, well, you of course have to follow the rules that are, and Sinclair lays them out,
no
versus,
gambling.
Yeah. And like everyone would be like, yes, we know these, because the Psycorps has these rules about them. Very cool. What any other thoughts, Jason? And we'll just kind of.
Yeah, just real fast, because you mentioned that interaction between her and Sinclair.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious, and I completely forgot about this in my first viewings. But where right after they talk about the you can't go into the casino, of course. Yeah. And he's going to take her then through what a lot of people call the alien zoo, which that's something else we got to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the way he pulled her up the ramp by grabbing her arm right here, did you notice that?
Yeah.
And pulled her up like, come on, lady, you come with me. I just thought that was hilarious, especially like this is supposed to be in the future. There's supposed to be a lot of democracy on this place, and he's treating a woman like you'd see Ron Burgundy treat a woman.
Yeah. I noticed there was a hint of misogyny.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a hint. Now, mind you, not on the bridge, because that was pretty all over the place with women and men and all. But man, there was a lot of stuff I had to forgive.
Yeah. And it was it did feel clunky. Well, we're going to go through the alien quarters. Just, instead of, I guess it's the same thing. Like every once in a while, I'll go through where I lived to go to Arlington. I'll go through the DFW airport because it's a shorter trip, and I just pay the $2 parking fee. That you go in and go out. But it did seem just a little weird. You would go through that. So yeah, I rewatched this recently. Was struck by. It's not spoilers that there's certainly things recast once it goes to series. I won't talk specifically who, but it was kind of neat to see these characters. I had forgotten how much of this was, and I want to get y'all's thoughts on it. It was a mystery story, who hurt Kosh, what was this going on, and everything about it. All the intrigue, there was a lot of heavy lifting, like who are all the characters, who are all the different races, what is the dynamic between the races, between the mysterious of the Vorlons, the Centauri, all the other, like Jakar and his race, and this all back and forth, and the humans trying to do there. I was impressed by, and you guys know how much I love Star Trek, right? But they actually look like aliens. They just don't have weird noses per se, right? The spaceships did look different because it was, animated. One of the things that JMS, J. Michael Straczynski, talked about, that he believed because he has written for a lot of TV shows before this, that he felt there was a lot of waste, that because people were waiting for the script to finish, that you would end up paying the crew overtime to build sets and to do costuming. And he believed that if you could have scripts done in advance, that you could have a crew not have to do a lot of overtime. And so one of the things we'll talk about is he ended up writing, I don't know the percentage, but 90% of the scripts were written by him through the 5 years. And he made a point of it was in plenty of time so that the cast and crew very seldom had to go into overtime, because that way they could stay on budget, which because of them not being on a major network, it was very important to them. So let's start Karen, I'll start with you. The mystery, did you think it was a good way to do the story, to kind of set the world of having a who poisoned, Kosh?
Yeah, I think it's very efficient to do things that way, because you do get a bunch of background on all the characters that way. And you also get that kind of tension issue, which is always good for a story. And you get to see, he was in the war with these people, there was a war with these people. And so there might be some issues there. Oh, they don't like those people, so it could have been that, so there's a lot of good setup that you can do with a quote unquote murder mystery, or as this was, a poisoning mystery. And you also got some setup with like how things are run there, who the major players were on the ship, like when they did that vote
right
near the end of the episode, or I guess the middle. And there were a few things that I had nits with that, but it was mostly pretty decent character setup, I thought. I really did get a good handle on, and I might not know all the ins and outs of what races go with who and all that stuff, but I did get a good feel for the main characters, and also whatever the tensions are between the characters and the relationships between them. So I thought it was really an efficient way to do things.
Good. Lou?
Yeah, I agree. I think Karen made a lot of good points there. It's I think the best moment was the inquiry, and we got to see on the vote sort of like a litmus test for each of the characters. Jakar, I believe, is the he reminds me of a Ferengi at this time. He's very wheeling and dealing kind of guy. He's got motives. The Centurion, I don't remember his name. Londo. He seems very cowed. I don't know. I guess they lost the war or something like that. So his whole race seems very depressed. And then you have the Minbari.
Yes.
Minbari, and that's Mura Falane, right?
Yes.
Deline? Yeah, and she's kind of like a Vulcan right now, coming off as a bit of a Vulcan to me. She's always doing this weird thing with her eyes, like she's analyzing, processing stuff all the time. And she has this strange relationship with the captain. And she's observing him, but at the same time, they have a friendship, which I don't think has been explained properly yet, or I missed it. But they have some sort of background that I'm not fully aware of. So I thought the overall, yes, I thought the murder mystery was a good way to do it, because it showed the functions of the crew as well. The Garibaldi is security, got into the captain's background, and the only thing I would say is it kind of reminded me of the original Star Trek episode, Is There in Truth No Beauty, with the Medusan ambassador and then the Vulcan mind meld stuff. So that stuff was kind of the same. But overall, it was a pretty effective way of laying out a lot of the relationships and dynamics of the space station.
Good. Jason?
Just exactly what Lou said there is this wasn't an original idea. It's just it's something we've seen before. I like the way they presented it. And like Karen said, it is a great way to get some background story, because then you're investigating something. So you do look into the background of some of the characters, which makes a lot of sense, because you don't want to be so ham-fisted and just, be punching people with all these details. But if you're finding these details out as you're going about, inquiry, it works out nice. Now, I had to laugh or actually smile a little bit when Lou was kind of like thinking about some different things. And I'm thinking, hey, just wait until you see what happens in the series as you go.
Yeah, in fact, this is fun for me because I'm on the other side of the aisle. And so, by the way, I'm making notes and I'm going to summarize our breadcrumbs before we go so that we can track them. So what did you... Any thoughts? By the way, I thought it was a good. I had remembered vaguely that it was a mystery, and so it doesn't work as a mystery for me now because I remember, and there's a lot of things going on. I see Jason nodding his head, but yeah, as a way to set up, I thought it was a really good, and there is I really like how they're laying the groundwork for the different races and the idea. One of the things that struck me is that humans were not the dominant necessarily race. Babylon 5 was under the Earth government, but it's almost like a mini United Nations, with the council, and I really like that. Lou, you mentioned how much you loved Garibaldi. There is a story that is not spoiler at all that JMS said that when the guy who came in to to test for Jerry Dole came in, he was incredibly short and like, yeah, let's do this, and they just went away and like, okay, he's Garibaldi. let's just cast him. He is I think a wonderful character. I really enjoy from the beginning. Any thoughts on the Psycorps? You get the premise, and this is later give it out more details, but I don't think this is spoiling. There is a rules around them. The Psycorp is a organization that organizes telepaths, and they are telepaths, not empaths. We tend to think that they truly are telepaths. And that's what I thought. Yeah. So any thoughts on that? And Jason, from a non-spoilery, what was your initial, if you can go back that long, what was your initial thoughts on that?
Well, it's very interesting. I'm trying to remember. It's been, for a while here, but I believe that what they do is if anybody shows anybody from any race shows any type of telepathic prowess, they come for them, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So much sci-fi goes into my head. Sometimes I don't know what's what.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we've seen this before in some different things, where people show, extraordinary powers and stuff. Then there's always groups that want to try to harness that in. They don't want them to be out there freelancing and doing all this kind of stuff. But I did enjoy it a lot. I do have to say, I wanted to say this. Okay, so Garibaldi through this whole series, it always, the way he presents himself, the way he acts, I always felt that JMS was looking to bring Bruce Willis in, and they couldn't get him. So they're like, let's find somebody else that resembles him and acts like him, because, I'm just, thinking one day he was just going to let out the yippee-ki-yay line.
Yes, exactly.
Which would have been hilarious.
He played a David Addison wannabe on Moonlighting.
Oh, I loved Moonlighting.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
I
There was an episode where they had like fanboys and stuff.
Oh.
And he was like, I want to be David Addison. He looks so much like him in that show, at least. And he definitely has some Bruce Willis vibes.
I guess I never went very deep on Jerry Doyle. I didn't know what else he was in.
Yeah. Any Lou, Karen, either one of you thoughts on the Psycorps and the telepaths, because I know my worry was, is this going to be the easy answer? Like, oh, the telepath can, read the mind, so any thoughts?
Well, I think that the fact that they set up that there were very strict rules for them, eased my mind a little bit, that she's not going to be that kind of what is it, Deus ex machina type of thing where it just ends because she figures everything out. And in this episode, that's actually subverted. because she gets that vibe, and it's just completely wrong because of the technology that the poisoner used. So
which doesn't make sense, but
yeah, I know, but still, I think that's good because they're making her not like the fall guy for all the stuff. And from what I know of stuff that I've heard about the show, there's going to be some famous people playing psych horror employees.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that very much. And I have to say, one of the scenes I found most humorous was when Jakar propositions her.
Yes.
So that they can make a baby, because there aren't many of his race that
do you prefer to be conscious or unconscious?
Yep.
What is your pleasure threshold?
Right.
Yes.
I had that in my notes. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, that made me laugh out loud, that scene, because and the look on her face was just blank, you know. She was just like, okay, whatever, no, I'm not gonna, no. So I found it very weird, but also very funny.
Yeah, one of the things I liked, and I'd love to you guys thought about it, I loved that the captain had a girlfriend, Carolyn Sykes. It looks like she's an independent, almost an independent captain, a freighter, almost, doing trade. I really like the idea that, we had the adult themes of, they're together, and then you later see them, they're both kind of getting out of bed, and he's undressed, he's putting on a robe. And I just liked their relationship. I liked that he had a love interest that wasn't on the station, that, him and his lieutenant, they are truly just, they are working together. Lieutenant Commander Kamisha, I think, Laurel, right? That actress later was in The Good Doctor, and I really liked her in that series. So I really liked her no nonsense kind of second in command. So I was glad to see that it appeared there was no. We get a lot of now that if there's a male lead and a female lead, there's immediately a will she or will they or won't they, and this was very clear. He has a relationship. This is not anything to do that. Any thoughts on Laurel, Carolyn? Anything else about kind of relationships on the station?
Well, the one thing I want to say is going off what Karen said here is, oh my gosh, she was straight out of the 80s hairdo. I mean, definitely even more. It looked like she came right out of an 80s music video.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I agree with you, because I mean, this has always been like this. Let's throw it back to Moonlighting. You knew they would get together. I mean, there was that chemistry the whole time. It's most shows. You get a couple leads and sometime throughout the show. I mean, look at Friends. I think they all hooked up. But yeah, it's something that happens with developing characters, and it was kind of nice that this was not somebody that was stationed on the ship, she's just coming in, I almost think about it like a Navy personnel. They have like a different girl at every port. I mean, does she have a different guy at every port? I don't know.
Yeah.
I wanted to see a demonstration of those slidey sheets that you had.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I hear they're frictionless.
Yes.
Would that just be silk? I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody else picked up on it, but I thought there was something going on between the lieutenant and the doctor. I don't know if it was kind of bordering on between a father and daughter, or a romantic kind of vibe going on there. So that was kind of weird, but I think in general, I'm be interested to see how the women are portrayed in the show, but considering the time period that it was produced, because it's kind of like you guys said, there's a little bit of old code of conduct stuff going on.
Misogyny, straight out misogyny.
Yeah, a little bit.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Anything you disliked that you went, I'm gonna have to kind of fight through this?
Well, the dialogue was very wild. At times it was pretty good, but at other times, like you mentioned, it was pretty stilted. You know, especially when they're explaining functions of the ships and whatnot. The zoo area.
Yeah.
Those masks. There happens to be 2 masks in that cabinet.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, like just two. Yes.
Yeah.
What if there's 3 people in your
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And also, I mean, this is the future. Why are they so bulky?
Right.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Well,
And-
everything was like that, though. The CRT monitors and all that. I mean,
Yeah.
Star Trek was around then, and they had like iPads and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah.
there was a newspaper in one scene.
Universe Today.
Yes. I was like, really? Okay.
Well,
That must have cost a pretty penny.
You know, they did right. It was kind of interesting that you know, because I don't think right. I guess you could have thought that, you know, like no one gets a newspaper now, and this is not anywhere close to that. You know, it's all
Right.
on your digital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
The paper would be expensive in the future, I would think.
Yes.
Right?
I don't know, but there was a couple of things like I never really got where exactly the space station was located. Like there's this planet in the background, but I have no idea what that planet is.
Okay.
And the other thing that was weird was the jump gates. Like, are they not controlled by anybody? Like that Vorlon warship pops in. Like if I'm on the space station, I would be controlling who can come through that jump gate. So I didn't really understand that mechanic. And hopefully that's going to be explained better in future episodes. Is that just a public thing that anybody can use and there's no way you can stop it? But it just seems like a very major weakness to be positioned so close to a jump gate that you could leave yourself open to attack like that. So I don't know. That was kind of weird as well.
I thought of them as interstates. Like
like you pay a toll or something
Right.
at one end and you get to
But
go through.
where's the toll taker on the other end?
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Good
who's
point.
letting this
Yes.
who's letting this ship come through? Like you know.
How about you, Karen? Anything as a newbie you weren't sure that, you know, you may have to fight through?
Okay. Sinclair.
Yeah.
Let me talk about him for just a second.
Please.
Could he be any more snarky, smarmy? I mean, he's like, like the whole episode. That's what he talks like. He's got, like what? How far did they go on their first date? You know, and I'm like, really? How professional of you.
Yeah.
So again, that with the misogyny sort of thing,
Sure.
and he was a little condescending as well. So I'm hoping that gets better. The guy is not a bad actor. I've seen him, you know, act in other things.
I felt he felt a little stilted, you know, a little wooden in this, you know, and so that was surprising to me.
And that is the weirdest combination, is snarky and stilted.
Yes.
So yeah, there was that, the acting a little over the top.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who, it was a little over the, it's like they got their orders and they were like, okay, I'm gonna play this to the max.
Right.
And like I said, the tech is just bad.
Yeah.
It's bad. The monitors, everything's like pixelated on the
Doors.
the doors. I did not appreciate the zoo thing.
Mhm. Yes.
And why did they have to walk through the zoo to get to her quarters?
It's a shortcut.
Yeah,
I
I guess
see.
so.
The
Yes.
DFW $2 toll. Yeah.
Yes, it did.
And earlier I said, you know, the wardrobe and stuff, it's very 80s. The hairdress, very 80s. And that bugged me because it's not the 80s. This did not come out in the 80s.
It came in the 90s.
It was in the 90s,
Mhm.
which
Early 90s.
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
early 90s is a little
It's almost 20 years old.
yeah. So there was that. And I think his acting is going to be one of the things that I really, and I know he's not in the full series. I mean, we get Bruce Boxleitner later, which I am.
You knew that? Oh.
I am a huge Bruce Boxleitner fan. So yes, Scarecrow and Mrs. King, he was like my first major crush.
Yes.
On something. And so I don't know why I never watched this show. I honestly don't, because when Bruce Boxleitner was on anything, I watched.
Wasn't he on Fall Guy too, if I remember right? Fall Guy?
Maybe
Maybe
a little
not.
bit.
I don't know.
I don't know. But I watched Cuffs, which is just the worst movie. And I mean, anything he was in, I watched except for this, apparently, which I guess is good because that means
Now we get to enjoy your time. Yeah.
Right.
How about you, Jason? Anything on the rewatch you go, oh, I'd forgotten this, or not, issues you had?
A lot.
Okay.
We already talked about the music. I completely forgotten about the music.
Mhm.
I gotta say the lighting is very weird. I mean, like disco. Did you see when they got on the lifts how it's just strobes? How can you get on something and just have strobing lights up and down? That is just crazy. And you were talking about some stiff acting. I thought outside of Garibaldi, Jakar, and Londo, everybody was stiff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I didn't think anybody was just. I mean, those three. Garibaldi the least of it because the other two are very animated, and I guess animated characters grab your eye, grab your attention, where the other ones, when they're stiffer like that, they kind of get lost in the background. And I know that's not the way the entire series goes because everybody develops, everybody gets the limelight, and they come to their own. But in this episode, it just seemed really, I don't know, just really stiff and really almost like, I don't really want to be here doing a science fiction space show, but I have to pay the mortgage. I mean, that's what I kind of thought some of it was.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to say that we were talking about how smarmy Sinclair was. How, oh boy, it's just like, just hit us in the face with this. But when, what was his name? Del Barber, when he comes on the station, it's like, oh my God, everybody has to know this guy's up to no good. Look at him. I mean,
he does look like that, doesn't he? Yes.
The shiftiest.
Yes, it was just insane. And then I had forgotten exactly what was going on with the mystery and the cloaking device. I didn't even remember the cloaking device. I'm trying to remember, okay, how are they shape-shifting? What's going on? I knew something like that was going on, but I couldn't remember how they were doing it. And then, of course, it's just a piece of tech that was smuggled on by Dell. I do have to say, that's gonna be spoily. I can't say that. Never mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I
strike that, reverse it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now I do want to get one of Delen's gravity rings because I think that would be awesome.
Hello.
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't need mace for the ladies. You wouldn't need mace. You just just choke them from the inside out.
Except for, you know what? I'd be using that all day, every day.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other rings there too. So.
Yeah.
Now. Yeah, just looking back at it, I mean, those were the main things. I do want to ask, who here is a gamer? Anybody play any games?
Yep.
Okay, so we talked about the CGI in here, the computer animation.
The
even a little bit. Anybody play the Wing Commander series with Mark Hamill?
Yeah.
Those CGI sets that they interacted with remind me so much of the ships. So it almost seems like, because that was around the same time too. Maybe they got the same people that did that game to do this. Who knows?
Yeah, I just think it was the look of CGI at the time.
Yeah.
Now that is a thing right now. They could re-release this because all that CGI, they could go back in and bring it up to 2022
standards. I don't
standards.
want that to happen though.
But
no.
But if the CGI, now listen to me, if the CGI kind of takes you out of the story, you don't want the story to be hampered in any way.
Yeah.
If they can make the CGI to where it's just more of a set piece and not prominent, but it actually kind of took me out of it because it is so much. So maybe not bring it up to 2022. How about 2000? Just take it up a decade or something like that. But,
I could see like the communication devices, the little terminals, those would be good updated. I don't mind the ships, to be honest.
Okay.
I like the solar sail thing on that one ship. I thought it was pretty decent. I thought the space station looked pretty good. I don't think it's necessary to update everything. I wouldn't mind them updating the personal tech at all.
And I do agree.
I did like the guns though.
Oh, the guns are cool too.
The
Yeah.
rifles.
And one of the things he
gosh.
wanted is he did not want like this laser or, a phaser that was unlimited. He wanted a gun that you had a limited amount of, charges or bullets.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I like the sound it made.
I do think the appearance of them in this pilot episode was a little funny. They do get better as it goes on, of course, but that was one of the things right away when they pulled out those big PPGs. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's just crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
So I did want to, I don't know if you guys, but there is on the internet, Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5. And when I was watching this was my go-to place because it had a lot of different things and it was non-spoilery. So if you only went to that link, it will talk about, and it will have questions like, unanswered questions. Why was Babylon 5 really built and rebuilt and rebuilt? Thinker's story about human stubbornness doesn't hold water. Then who sabotaged B1 and B3 and why? Who vanaged B4 and why? So there's a lot of different, I use that every time I watch the episode. I'd go there, and it was one of the things I loved is it was non-spoilery. And
so you couldn't give us that link?
Yeah, yes, I will send that to you. Yes.
Well, do you want us to go there though?
Yeah, no, because there is no spoilery to it. So you can, if you don't go ahead, it will not let you, it will just give you things to think about.
I deliberately stayed away from, looking at it, like searching online.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even searching for it in Google, you might get stuff.
Exactly. You can.
Yeah. Right. So I tried not to do that. I did look on IMDb.
Yes.
To see what the people had been in otherwise. And
the thing I did not like, I thought Delenn seemed wooden. And watching this again, I really liked the lieutenant. And then as someone who's seen the whole thing, seeing the way that G'Kar and Londo were played brought me pleasure without spoilers. So that was really good. Cool. Any final thoughts before we get to our ratings?
Well, can I talk about a couple? You know how I am with like character actors and what they've been on?
Yes, please.
So I want to make a couple notes here. Tamlin Tomita, who played Takashima, she's in Cobra Kai now. So
okay. I need to check that out.
If you want to know where you've seen her from, and The Good Doctor.
Yes.
Mira Fullen, of course, who played Dylan, was Rousseau on Lost.
Yes.
And we just lost her, I think, last year.
Yes.
We did. Like half the cast is dead now, which is so strange.
Yes.
Let's see.
Especially when you get to like most pilots, they recast things. When you go to the first episode, Lou Karen, you'll go, oh, okay, some of these people are gone, some people are back. But yes, if you look at the main cast, too many people are lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Del Varner, who played, he played Del Varner, the dude that came on the space. He was actually in Chuck versus the Helicopter. He played the doctor in that episode. The main guy who was the, what do you call it? He wasn't the antagonist, but he was the main guy. And of course, Peter Jurassic, who played Londo, was Krom and Tron and a million other things. Andreas Katsoulas, who played G'Kar, he played Tomalak in STTNG, which if you've watched TNG, that's a pretty big.
Is he the one-armed man in the Harrison Ford Fugitive movie?
He might have been.
He might be, yeah.
He was in a lot of genre stuff. Let's see what else. And the last one I had, and this might be interesting to you, Jesse, Patricia Tallman, who played Lita, the telepath. She played Vivian Marchand on Castle He's Dead, She Said.
And she also was a stunt double for a lot of things. I read her book, and it was a very interesting book.
Yeah, I was like, oh yes, that's where I know her from.
Yes.
And Greg Aronovitz was in this, and Haley McLean. Haley McLean is the voice of the ship, the computer. She's a script supervisor for a lot of genre shows. The Walking Dead and things like that. So she's very well versed, which I found interesting. And Greg Aronovitz,
I don't know that one.
Sorry.
Stop, Alexa.
I said my wake word.
Yeah.
So he played the assassin, and he's a prop master.
Oh, yeah,
So
very nice.
there was a lot of cool stuff in this.
Yeah, it was.
You know, I love looking to see where did I know that person from.
Yeah.
So as we go on in the
Please do.
podcast, I'll be doing that.
Absolutely. All right. Any final thoughts, and then any predictions from our rookies?
Okay. I do want to mention, I did like the look of the Vorlon.
Yes.
That's correct, right? I thought,
Yeah.
very Jim Henson-esque.
Yes, very
look
much.
to it,
I agree.
But I thought there was a big missed opportunity there with, or it was just the way how it was worked into the episode is when the lieutenant asked the doctor what he saw, and like he's trying to make this profound, moving statement, but it just really came off kind of light, and it was in the wrong part of the episode. It should have been maybe the last scene between those two characters or something like it, but because he just, like, I saw the face of God, and what's for breakfast? It was kind of like that. It just really fell flat, which is too bad, because I thought that would have been a great moment. Thoughts for the series. I'm still not sure what the parameters of what the show is trying to do is. I mean, there's a couple of plot points, with the captain's memory loss, and Jakar, I think the Ferengi guy that's plotting. So I think those will be two driving things going forward.
Okay.
The Psychor thing, I'm a little leery of it, like you guys mentioned, unless there's some sort of like Bene Gesserit order, and they have to have very strict rules about how they use their powers and whatnot. And I guess overall, I'm getting the vibe that this first season is going to be a bit of a slog. I have a feeling it's going to be kind of like Farscape and Fringe, in that it's just
Star Trek, and
it's just fleshing out the universe,
Yes.
and you gotta get used to everything before the story kicks in, and which is what I'm really looking forward to, because this is a 5-season long story that a lot of series, I'm a serialized guy. I like serialized television versus standalone episodes. So except
I will
for the
tell
original
you,
Star Trek, oddly enough. But I'm really looking forward to that.
So I will tell you, and I'd love Jason to feel, I enjoyed the individual episodes. There's a couple that if we weren't doing a podcast, I would probably skip, if a rewatch. But overall, I do think it as it goes, it gains gears. But and as in many first seasons of any show, not just science fiction, but they're figuring out the rules, they're figuring out what characters interact well, they're getting their sea legs, on that. But overall, I know a lot of people talk bad about the first season, but there are some really great episodes, and similar to the Marvel universe. I have a good friend, Junior, who always talks about, like, I'm putting my fingers together, like, you can't skip a Marvel Universe movie because it all connects. And this does set up a thought. Jason, any thoughts on my statements there?
Exactly. I mean, I haven't actually gone to verify this information, but I did hear that JMS actually wrote the first and last episodes. And then filled everything in to make those connect. So unlike a lot of them, like Lost, you mentioned Lost, Karen, where you can tell they made it up as they went along. They had a clear premise for season 1, because I believe it was originally picked up for a 13-episode miniseries, wasn't it? And then when the ratings went great, then they're scrambling to make a whole story. Where he had this all planned out, and just what Jesse had said earlier. Another thing I'd heard about that is JMS wrote every single episode except for 5. That was the number I heard. Only 5 episodes were not penned by him. So that shows you the depth he was into it and how he wanted to make everything just be so cohesive. So sorry, Karen, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I think that's great. I love his stuff. He is an amazing author. He came up with a lot of storylines for comic books.
Yeah.
A really great Wonder Woman run.
Yeah.
I mean, prolific in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to his writing in this show, definitely.
Yeah, and Jason is correct. He wrote a synopsis of the whole 5 seasons, and then had trap doors built in that if they lost a character, how he would adjust the storyline. So, and he did lose a couple of major characters along the way, and he had to adjust. But overall, he has said that he got in almost everything he wanted, and so there is a purpose. And he tells the story that when he was right in college or right out of college, he spent some time like in a commune, and people were they had glass, different stained glasses, and they were putting them together, and they had big pieces, and his was small mosaics intricately built together, because that's how his mind thinks. And so this was his. He said that in British TV there was always this serialized, like Blake Seven and The Prisoner, and he believed American TV could do it. Karen and I used to talk a lot about this, as you did, Lou, but especially when we did Storm in the Castle, about the Ponderosa, at the Bonanza, little Joe falls in love, gets married, she dies, and the next episode no one's even talking about that. There's everything resets. One thing about Babylon 5 is nothing resets. There is that continuation, partly because he got gray hair. He aged considerably. But you think about writing 5 seasons of TV, and I believe
brutal.
I know Neil Gaiman wrote an episode. Peter David wrote a couple. There's very few episodes that he didn't write.
That's an amazing feat.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a hand in those too. Whether he wrote them,
did.
I mean, yeah,
he did.
And again, Peter David, I'm looking forward to that. He's
Neil
he's a
Gaiman.
great author.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Neil
really?
Gaiman wrote
Fontana.
it. Yeah.
PC Fontana.
Yeah. So some really good writers. And Harlan Ellison was involved with almost everything. He was Harlan was kind of had he never specifically wrote a script, but JMS went to him all the time about things, and so he was very much kind of the godfather of the series to help them. So pretty strong legacies.
Can I bring up something I forgot real quick?
Yeah.
One of the scenes I really enjoyed was the one with the sand garden.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought that was
cool.
That was a really nice, calm part of the show, and a way to do an allegory for her relationship with him, and how she's kind of a philosopheress.
Yes.
So I like that scene too, and I meant to bring it up earlier. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's good, and I also think one of the things that I love about this series is they are not afraid to take those beats. That there are small moments in episodes where it's just a character moment. It is just that. So it's very great.
And there was actually like a plot point written into that where she gives him information.
Yes.
But there's also that kind of, here's what my character's about, and I'm gonna be calm and talk to you about the sand garden, and you tell me, the history behind them.
Good.
So I liked it.
All right, Karen, what's your rating?
It's not great.
That's okay.
Okay. Because again, it's a setup. I give it 6 Spoo, which I guess we're gonna go with Spoo.
Yes.
Okay.
You will find out about Spoo. Yes.
I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah. Lou?
I'm getting nervous. Spoo does not have
No, I know what the Spoo is.
Yeah.
I know what it is. So.
I don't. I'm going to be a little more lenient. I'm going to give it a 7 Spoo.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
There's enough to intrigue me. The setup is good. The execution's a little clunky, but that's part of the time and the technology. So I'm being a little lenient on that.
And don't forget, this is Karen's thing. You can pick your own item if you want.
Oh.
So you don't have to go Spoo. So
Okay,
going
then
forward,
I'm going to go 7 Three Stooges haircut.
There you go. Jason, how about you?
Okay, so I know where this all goes. So
Yes.
of course I'm a little tainted there, but I think I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to go 8. I think I'm going to go 8 Bravari.
Okay.
Because that's probably my limit, and then I'd have to stop anyway.
Yeah.
I'm excited to revisit the entire series now that I've started.
Oh, good. Well, I'm excited. Yeah, same thing. I'm gonna go 8 out of 10 illegal coffee beans. Which I thought was a really nice point to show how things are. Like, is that real coffee? And and she's like, I snuggled in enough. So yeah, I'm excited about rewatching this. This gives me, it is, as I said, it's one of my favorite series, and being able to share with, such wonderful friends, and the idea to revisit. We are going to be doing this every other week. So that way there's not a strain on us. So be looking for it on the JKL media, which is Jesse, Karen, Lou, in case you haven't figured out. And so we'll be doing that. Karen, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
I am pretty much Aleveria everywhere, Aleveria.
Yes.
That mostly on Twitter, because I love the Twitter machine.
Okay.
So you can find me there. And again, my blog is aliesstuff.com.
Okay.
So you can find my links there.
Okay. And Lou?
Yeah, same here. Primarily Twitter, even though it's become more of a voice box for opinion rather than just the fun stuff that I originally used it for.
Yeah.
At Lou, L-O-U-W Sitzma, or at the Stephen King podcast.
Okay. Jason?
Probably the easiest way is just go to our main website, digitalsuitproductions.com. And on there, we have all of our shows, along with, different icons to click on to go to our Discord, Twitter, Facebook, etc. So that's the easiest way to find us.
All right. And you can reach the show at jklb5podcast@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can hear me talking Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere, general pop culture topics on How Many Podcast, and the podcast that takes most of my time, Set Listing Bruce, where I talk to Bruce Springsteen fans from around the world. I just recently crossed 800 episodes. See what you created, Lou and Karen? A monster. And if you're not a fan of Bruce Springsteen, reach out to me anyway, because I love having people discuss their favorite musicians. In fact, I just interviewed a lady who had written a book on David Cassidy, and that episode's going to be coming up. So really good.
Yeah, you had me on to talk about nerd rock.
Yes, we did.
A million years ago.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do really with Bruce Springsteen.
Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, his show Set Listing Bruce is very interesting. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. So so Jason, you have to reach out to me and let's talk music.
All right.
So Lou, Karen, Jason, thank you guys so much. Listeners, thank you. Please tell us what you think. Enjoy the ride along with us. I'm going to end this the same way I do Set Listing Bruce. Go get vaccinated. Go get your booster. Let's all be safe and careful and be good to each other, because that's the only way we're going to do this. For now, we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Cannot say. Saying I would know. Do not know. So cannot say. What a wonderful idea.
You do not understand, but you will. The future is all around us, waiting in moments of transition to be born in moments of revelation. No one knows the shape of that future or where it will take us. We know only that it is always born in pain,